almost every single high performance swimmer that I trained with or was around or know, none of them swim. None of them even swim for leisure, for pleasure, whatever it is. Like as soon as they're done, they are done. And I think that I was like that. And now I'm like, I would like to, I'm not saying I'm going to swim every single day. There's loads of other stuff I want to do. But if someone says, do you want to go for a swim? I want to be like, yeah, that sounds nice. Whereas if I say to some people that I'm thinking of in my head, you want to go for a swim? They go, absolutely not. In the swimming program in America, it's all team based. So every year you go to the national championships and you compete individually, but you compete as a team, and it's all about, you know, which team can score the highest points. So it's all team focused, training, competitions, the big meets. It's all about the team. There's a big workload that comes with swimming, and from a pretty early on, so from about 15, 16, when I started taking it seriously, I was 10, 11 sessions in the pool, maybe 2, potentially 3 in the gym, and like it was a massive demand.
Before we dive into this episode, I want to ask you to hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. It helps keep growing the channel and keep getting fantastic guests like this one. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to talk so much about all these accomplishments you've had within your swimming career and all the things that you've done within swimming. But I want to go back and understand, when was that kind of first occasion where you thought, I might go all in on this, I might really excel in this particular field?
Yeah, so I mean, I started training and competing when I was thinking about 10 or 11, but it was very much kind of pretty relaxed, I did it with my siblings and stuff, and we just swam. It was one of the many sports that I did at that age. And I think it was when I was about 15 years old. So I've been doing it for quite a few years, and I was never blessed with like a lot of talent or muscle or build or anything at that age. I was pretty small and scrawny. I had to kind of really work for my results.
Hustle.
But yeah, I had to hustle, I had to grind, which I think helped me in the long run. But I was about 15 years old where I was like, right, let's give this a go. And it was never like, you know, be an Olympic medalist.
So at 15, what are the kind of indicators for you that you might decide to push harder here?
I realized pretty early on that I like to compete. I like to get up and go head to head with whoever it is, whether that's in a competitive race or even just in training. Like I went pretty hard in training, and I was always trying to, you know, one up someone or just give it my all. And I really enjoyed the hard work as well. So that combination there at 15, I mean, I wasn't winning gold medals at that age, even on like a regional or national level, but I enjoyed the hard work, which I enjoyed the process. And then I liked to just go head to head. Whether I won or lost, it didn't really matter at that point. I just liked I like the nerves, like the butterflies, like going through the process and just seeing how I
wonder how many
on.
young athletes are the exact opposite. Like they're smashing it in training and maybe competitively in training, but then there's like a choke or a freeze, or they're maybe within themselves too much within that environment. Did you see that against maybe guys that you were coming through with?
Yeah, I've definitely seen it, and I've heard about, you know, they're kind of almost like shying away from the spotlight or the high pressure environments on competition day. And I think that I was lucky that I was the opposite. I loved it, but I think that that's like why we do it, right? As you know, as a competitive athlete, competitive swimmer, you know, the competitions are what you're training towards. So I always just had, that was always a chance for me to kind of prove to myself that what I've been doing is paying off, that I've been working hard enough, that I deserve to win. But I think there was maybe, I'm trying to think back now, there was definitely a couple of, you know, competitions when I was a young teenager that got the best of me, nerves wise, pressure wise. But then I kind of just, I think I switched my mindset. I always told myself that if you're nervous about something, you're doing something you care about. And, you know, I think that I really just channeled that. It's like, I decided to be here. So whether I'm feeling the pressure or not, like
people will laugh in their AirPods, Dan, because I had an American psychologist a couple of years ago now, sports performance for the Texas Rangers, Hannah Huseman.
Oh, nice.
And she said the nervous system for nerves and excitement and all the different hormones that are going on, exact same thing.
Yeah.
Just choose how you channel it. So you're saying, I'm nervous because this is something I care about. You can flip it to, I'm nervous, but I'm excited, and it's going to help me to be sharper, to be quicker, to respond faster, to have my response time down, to be more slick or whatever it is. And it's just that reframing piece, and to do that at a really young age is pretty helpful.
Definitely. And then even as I got older as well, I mean, I've trained with some incredible athletes, and we spent the majority of our time in the pool, you know, 20 plus hours a week together. And I saw some people that were incredible at training. Like, they were able to just get so much out of their body, and day in and day out, they were able to really push hard. Like, swimming is a grind. Like, you're you're swimming miles and miles every week. It's a tough sport to do on the training side of things. And then I always, I saw a few occasions where those ones that were training really hard never really stood up and found that extra level on race day. And I think that was very important for me, was to try and be good every day, but when it comes to the competition, be extra good, like find something.
A little extra percentile because of the excitement of like, oh, this is for something 100%. Now.
Like, you can go fast in training when no one's watching, that's great. But when there's pressure, like you have to kind of rise to it. You have to allow that environment to bring something out of you that you can't do every day in training on like a Monday morning kind of thing.
Of course. And one of your first big decisions when it came to swimming was to actually go out to the States. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, I was about 17 years old, looking at kind of universities, and because that's kind of where everyone in the swimming world, they all kind of train at national centres. And there was some great options in the UK, but I just felt like I wanted something a bit different. And what I did was I was very young and kind of naive at this point, and I just Googled where the fastest swimmer in the world was for my event, which at that time was like 200 and 400 medley. His name's Ryan Lochte. He's like Michael Phelps' rival, and he trained at University of Florida. And I just got it in my head. I was like, I need to go there. I need to see what this guy's doing. The more I looked into it, I realized that it wasn't just him there. There was a whole program that was just like outstanding athletes. And I had never really looked into the States. And a lot of people go over to the States and they'll take their time and they'll kind of look around and they might get recruited themselves. Whereas I kind of put myself forward, and the only option was Florida. I never looked at any other universities.
That's where this guy is. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, and I was like, I need to just be, a small fish in that big pond and see what happens and learn from, Ryan and the coaches and the other teammates there. And I think that it was maybe a brave decision, but I think it's really great. I think it's really cool that I just kind of went out there and did it. And
I think it's so cool. Yeah. Like you were like, who's really good at what I want to do?
Yeah.
And where does he go as his logical next step? Because at the moment you can't maybe Google an Olympian and be like, okay, how do I go and train with him? You're like, okay, I'm going to go to a college or a uni.
Yeah.
That's the logical next place to look at.
Yeah, I think that I wanted to be surrounded by people that were way better than me, that were already way further on than me, and I wanted to try and just jump on their tails and see if I could hold on. And it's all about who you surround yourself, right? And we're very blessed, and especially in British swimming, that the national training centres, there are, everyone there is top class, world class athletes. I just wanted something a bit different, I guess.
Yeah, and you'd never been to the States before, so it's even more, I guess, aspirational or crazy that you'd want to go.
I've never even been on holiday there. Like a lot of athletes will go on like a recruiting trip and like go and check out the university, get a vibe for it. I just literally booked a one-way ticket and I was on my way.
What was the application process for something like University of Florida like? Because it's one of the top ones, and with such a huge sporting department, it's intense.
So sport is massive there. They are very much, they're a university town, but they're also very much a sporting university, as well as academics. So essentially just had to kind of meet a certain grade level at high school, but really the scholarship would allow me to go, not no matter what, but kind of as long as they did okay, the scholarship would allow me to go into the university program. So it was great because I got this, world-class education, as well as being, like the facilities over there, it's crazy. Like the way that it's built up at the University of Florida and all across America is like, we have a American football stadium on campus that almost every weekend or every other weekend is filled out 80,000 tickets. That's money coming in, and it just goes right back into the university, into the sporting department, but then also in across the wider university as well. So it's like a really well-run business that way. So everything there was just bigger and better. The weight room, the facilities, the training staff, the support systems. It was like,
because even
crazy.
Here, if I think about when I was going to uni, my friends that were like super good at golf or football would go to Stirling because that was like a kind of epicenter.
Yeah.
But if you look at the funding that's coming through a well-run business with 80,000 paying fans on a weekly basis, and the whole town coming to watch the university football team, you can see why the revenue is going back into world-class facilities and giving you guys the edge potentially.
Yeah, and it's really cool, like the loyalty and like they call it the alumni. Like if you went to University of Florida or any university in America, you're kind of loyal to that university for the rest of your life. You'll wear like the University of Florida like polo shirt when you're golfing at age 60 because you went there when you're 1920. So it's really cool to kind of be a part
Identity
of that.
is everything. It really is. And we want that tribal nature sometimes.
Yeah, and I think
just get a letter from University of Glasgow asking if I'd like to donate every so often.
yeah, it's not quite the same, but I think that's also something that really attracted me was in the swimming program in America. It's all team based. So every year you go to the national championships and you compete individually, but you compete as a team, and it's all about which team can score the highest points. So it's all team focused, training, competitions, the big meets. It's all about the team, whereas it's a lot more individually specific over here. And I think that I like the idea of being around a team where the person next to me wants me to do just as well as they want to do well, so that the overall team, is increased and enhanced. So I thought that was a really, really nice culture, and it definitely suited kind of my mentality and my, I guess, energy on poolside.
And you're saying at 15 you weren't necessarily winning all the regional titles or winning all the national titles. When you're out there, are you starting to get that feedback loop of winning races and finishing higher up podiums?
Yeah, so about 17, 18, so right before I went, I started to get a little bit better, a little bit quicker. And then when I went out there, I filled out a lot. I got a lot stronger. I developed into my body there, and that was definitely a big thing that I noticed that really helped me. And then I started to really understand, how hard I can push in training, and I became a smarter trainer as well. So knowing when to work hard and just smash up and down, and when to kind of just focus on the little things. And I started to understand a bit more about myself at the same time I was getting stronger.
You
fitter.
moved away from home for the first time as well,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is major, isn't it?
Yeah, so like that learning curve over being in a place I've never been in my entire life, I had to just grow up quickly, and as an athlete and as a person. So yeah, I definitely, it maybe took about a year to kind of acclimatize to things, and my second year, that's when I started to show a bit more promise, and that's when I started to maybe see that there was a potential path I was going down, which looked pretty cool.
What are your ambitions at that stage then, in terms of like a swimming career, in terms of as a pro athlete or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, at the University of Florida, my goal was to try and see if I could get my name in the history books, break some school records, and help the team win points. But I knew that there was also like an international, and they were very good at focusing on that international side as well. Yes, they were focused on the college, the performances, but then in the summer it was like the international break, and they wanted to produce Olympians and world championships and medalists. And I think,
well, how good does that look to say to a prospective student from Scotland, Dan Wallace, to say, Dan, we've got Ryan Lochte, but like X number of other people have gone on to win Olympic silver, Olympic gold, or they've done this at the world championships, and you're like, okay, this is the uni for me, rather than say Texas or whatever else.
Yeah. So that was a massive thing for me. So I think that when I started to do well there, I went, right, I want to make it from the junior, like British junior, which I was, and then a bit past, to go from the junior to the senior. It's quite difficult. Not many people make that jump to the senior team. So that was just my first goal, was like, right, make the world championship team.
Are they keeping tabs on you while you're over there?
They're doing a lot better now. I think that you were kind of like exiled a little bit when you went over there. There was all these issues with, I was making top 16 in the world at that point, which would allow me to be on UK sporting funding. And I didn't get it for like 2 years because I wasn't training in the UK. And then they kind of came around to, I think that's now changed across the board. But
sometimes the red tape's just bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny. But I just kept, I didn't let that faze me. I was like, I'm gonna prove that I'm worth, investing in, and I'm worth kind of, bringing along and help and supporting me, even from the UK supporting me. They do a lot of kind of summer circuits, the British team. They'll go to different meets across Europe and stuff. And I was like, I want to be included in that. Even though I'm training in America, that was my choice, where I thought I could excel the most. But every summer I'm putting on that Team GB cap or that Team Scotland cap, and this is helping me do that. So
yeah, one thing's feeding the other. It just happens it's a slightly different route to maybe some of the other guys that are in the Scotland team.
Yeah, I mean, like from a Scottish and UK standpoint, of course you'd want as many homegrown athletes as possible. But if someone sees an opportunity, and sometimes it's not even just about them wanting to be, they thinking that's the best place to go train. They want to maybe just go and experience a bit more, and like maybe don't want to stay in Stirling or Edinburgh or wherever it is, Loughborough. Maybe some people just want a bit more of a change, and move around. And I look back and I loved that. I spent 4.5 years in Florida. I mean, it's a great place to be. It's like the weather's incredible. I've made friends all across the US, all across the world now. So like that was just I think out with the swimming and the results, just the experience of being very far away from home. And
What's it
being
like as a
somewhere
student athlete there? Because I know if you go to freshers in
different.
Edinburgh or Loughborough or wherever, it's just constant partying and drinking for that first little
Yeah.
bit. Is it different in the States?
I mean, it's, you're a university athlete. You're going to enjoy yourself. Obviously, we've got a focus that is kind of like performance based, and you need to be healthy and be fit and not be run down for that. So there's, you've got to find that sweet spot. But that again is like, you learn about yourself. So, I've got a lot of teammates that they wouldn't go out the weekend because they needed to just be totally switched on all the time. Whereas myself and others, like I found ways for, if I wanted to be really good on Monday morning and through to Saturday morning, I needed to be fresh on Monday morning mentally. So that means doing stuff at the weekend that is, I'm not thinking about swimming at all. So whether that's just socializing, going out about, or going out for some drinks, whatever makes you ready to go on Monday morning, that's for you to figure out. But yeah, it's there's plenty of opportunity to have fun out there.
It's very different for everyone, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I know nowadays I'm very big on elective sobriety, and it's very rare that I actually choose to drink alcohol. But I know that there's many high performers that I've been really close to and got to know through the podcast who they need that time to be like, right, now it's like off.
Yeah.
And like recently I was in Ibiza on holiday and I was very much enjoying myself. And I was like talking almost like holiday call and home call. Because I was just like, right, totally switched off. It's the first time in ages, because normally I go on like a holiday, I'll go to like a Dubai or Marbella and I'll work on my phone, I'll maybe do some podcasts. There I was just like, my phone was just away and I was just enjoying myself, and it's helpful.
I think it's really important to be able to switch on and off, whether that is, work mode and non-work mode or whatever it is, throughout the day, throughout the season, throughout the year. Being able to toggle on and off, I think keeps your mind totally fresh, keeps you present in what you're doing as well. So when I'm at the pool, all I'm thinking about is at being at the pool. When I'm not at the pool, I'm most likely thinking about what I'm doing at that time. But I mean, I was training twice a day, morning and evening. Those hours in between, I can't not think about training in the afternoon because it's like I'm still recovering and
it's
then
like
I'm getting
looming,
ready.
isn't it?
It's looming in a way. So when I did have downtime, I made sure that I was able to just mentally kind of like relax from things. And I think that worked.
Anyone that's gone to a Scottish school that went to school with swimmers, even guys that didn't make it to the level that you did, like or even close to, the dedication and hours they put in was beyond anything. So like I played a lot of rugby at school, played at a reasonable level, but we trained like twice a week after work, after school, and did a bit of strength conditioning 2 or 3 days. Whereas the guys that were swimming were like morning before school and then after school, and then they would have their S&C as well. And you're like, the hours they put in and the reps they put in were on a totally different level of commitment to even the guys that made it to play for an SPFL football team or they made it to play Glasgow Warriors or Scotland Rugby. It was just night and day.
Yeah, it's there's a big workload that comes with swimming, and from a pretty early on. So from about 15, 16, when I started taking it seriously, I was 10, 11 sessions in the pool, maybe 2, potentially 3 in the gym, and like it was a massive demand. But I think that being able to do that at a young age, like, and then balancing school, like, it's going to teach you a lot about commitment, dedication, and just great mindset skills that a lot of teenagers don't go through that. Like I remember my sister, she's a bit younger than me. She just went to university, and she would always be like, she maybe complain that she's got to do something in the morning. And I'm like, Lily, I used to be up at like 5 a.m. when I was your age. Go to training, go back to school, and then do it all again. And she was like, oh yeah, not too bad.
And that becomes what we get used to as well, though.
Yeah.
So for example, if that's what you've grown up doing, you're kind of like, oh, well, when that's not there, and we'll definitely get onto that, it's like a bit of a hole. Yeah. Or you're like, oh, well, I should probably fill that with something else now that makes me like have to commit a lot of time and energy to something.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll probably touch on it a bit more, but something that I realized that I was ingrained in me as an athlete, and I'm going to always have to do it, is I'm always going to have goals, whatever they are. Usually it's kind of around fitness as well. Those goals might not be as big as they used to be or as challenging, but I have to have something. Even if I just like go to the gym aimlessly, I won't do it, or I won't enjoy it. If I'm training towards something, whether it's even if it's a gym, like a weight goal, like I want to have this amount of muscle, whatever it is, just having something so you're like going towards it. I think that started off as a swimmer, and then there was a couple of years when I stopped swimming that I didn't really have many goals or just didn't set any. And I just felt like
I
had
laughed. I heard you say before, you're like, I became the guy that tried to go to the pub, and I kind of didn't really get it because you were like, never done it before.
I was just trying to be normal, be that normal guy, because I finally could. And then I was like, I can be normal, but I'm still there's part of me that I still need to tap into, and it's that like goal setting. It's that having something to work towards, because it just keeps me grounded. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me kind of happy.
The type of people that listen to a podcast like this one are people that are orientated towards wanting to aim at something, wanting to work towards something. So they'll be nodding along thinking, I completely get that.
Yeah.
How quickly during your time in America did stuff like the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games become something that was possible?
Yeah, probably after my first year. So let me try and get these dates right. So 2012 was my first year there. So I went to Olympic trials knowing that I was probably just going to be a little bit shy. So it was never really a goal to actually qualify there. It was more just get experience, see if I can improve my times. After that year, I had a really good season in America. So this is 2013. So I went, right, I think I can make the World Championships 2013. I qualified. I think I came like 8th in the final. It was all just about experience, and I loved it.
You're still quite raw then, aren't you, in terms of if that's your first like big international senior event as well?
Yeah, I'm just taking it all in at that point. But I think I really enjoyed, I thought I was almost quite lucky the way that the competitions rolled around. So going to World Championships as a first timer and just taking it in, and then knowing that next year it's a Commonwealth Games. So like it's slightly lower maybe. Like the standard is still there, but it's also a Glasgow, it's home games.
I was gonna say, do you believe in fate, Dan?
I'm like, that's actually worked out quite well for me. You know, if I
it's
can
like
improve, then
I'm
at the Commonwealth Games, and I think I can maybe do quite well there. And then after that, then I did pretty well. And then after that's the World Championship, so it's a step up from the comedies, but I've got a bit more experience than my belt. Did great there, and then the next one's Olympics. So it was like a really nice stepping stone from like me gaining experience, and then the competition's almost getting bigger and bigger each year as I developed as an athlete each year as well. So I was really fortunate for the way that kind of all unfolded for me, I think.
Let's talk about that 2014 Commonwealth Games then in Glasgow, in your home country.
Yeah.
When you see that rolling round, I said a joke, do you believe in fate? Like timing of that is incredible, because it could have been anywhere else in the world, really.
It could have been anywhere. And I remember when it got announced, because they announced it quite early on, sometimes like 8 years ahead, and I was obviously a lot younger at that point, and I'm like, damn, like if I make the Commie Games, which I thought maybe that kind of era, that those years, that was maybe if I did well, I could be going to the Commie Games. But this was like when I was way younger, and I was like, oh damn, it's gonna be in Glasgow. I was gutted because I wanted it to be somewhere
the
exotic.
Gold Coast,
yeah, like somewhere amazing. And then as I got older and as I got closer, I go, oh no, wait, actually that's really good if it's in Glasgow. That's great for me as a Scot if it's in Glasgow. And it lived up to that hype, and it was it was really special. I'm sure like if anyone can remember back then, it was such a great time for me personally. Obviously, that's when the results start to come round, and I started to realize that if this is it, then I've made it to a level where I am so beyond proud of myself. So yeah, it was a pretty good time.
Did you go into that as the favourite?
No, but there was a few people that were keeping an eye on me in America, and I was doing really well there, but my times from the year before like weren't that great. So on paper, I went unnoticed. But then after the prelims, after the heats in the mornings, I broke the Commonwealth Games record in the morning.
I was going to say, I was looking through it.
Everyone was like, oh, all right, Dan's got a lot better, in 12 months. So it was good to go in with like no pressure. But then as soon as the final came around, there was suddenly this pressure because I was qualified first.
What are the feelings like then before jumping in that pool at home games, potentially now the favourite because you've done so well in the earlier rounds?
Yeah, that was like the first time where, we spoke about pressure and me living up to and leaning into the pressure, but that was the first time there was like real pressure on like a properly big stage. And I was like, right, you've got to I literally just spoke to myself in the call room, in the ready room before you go out. I was like, you've got an opportunity here. And it's going to basically be decided right now in this room, not in the pool. We're all at this physical level now. Someone's going to win, someone's not. It's who's got it in the head. And I was just like, right, this is my chance to do it. So I just told myself, it was self-talk, it was self-belief. I was like, this is your chance to do it, and go out there and do it. Because I could have just been like, I think a lot of times when I was younger, I was like, I won't win, that guy will win. Like, why would it be me? And then for the first time, when I really needed to tell myself, I was like, make it you today. Like, make it you today. So, yeah, I think that I just had a little conversation with myself beforehand. And I just thought the pressure's here, lean into it.
And were you up against guys that you must have raced against many different times before?
Yeah, I was up. There was two other Scots in there, which was great. Lewis Smith and Ross Muir, so that was cool. I trained with them. I'd raced them loads of times. There was a couple of English swimmers in there as well, but then there was a South African and an Australian. So Australian Tommy Fraser-Holmes. I never actually raced him. He became a very good friend of mine after this. But Sebastian Rousseau from South Africa, who got bronze in the end, he was my teammate in Florida. Trained together every single day.
Knew each other inside out.
Absolutely. And I think that was great because we knew each other's tactics. So I knew he was going to go out hard. I knew that I could catch him up at the end. And if you're swimming and you feel yourself getting caught up, you can see someone coming for you. The water turns into cement. It's the worst feeling in the entire world. If you feel yourself catching up to somebody, it's like the jets are on.
And you said you knew that you had that kind of edge over him towards the end of a race.
Towards the end, if he was tightening up, he's going to feel awful. If I see myself catching up, I'm going to feel great. Even though I was probably in a lot of pain, if I feel myself catching someone, it's just this weight off your shoulders.
A little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. So, for example, you're saying that I close races really well.
Yep.
And you get into that situation in real life, in the heat of battle, you're like, oh, it's coming true. Let's go.
Yeah. So I knew that that's kind of how it was going to go down. And it was really cool to, it was cool to share the stage with Seb. And we're very good friends. And I think that was... what's quite nice about the swimming circuit is you kind of get to know each other. That was my first meet where I was maybe starting to get to know my competitors other than my teammates. But, from there, the next few years, by 2016, so 2 years later, I was, out of the pool, very good friends with almost everyone that I raced, and I knew them all.
But yeah, you in the end, in the 2014 games, you did win it in that straight and take home the gold. Yeah,
I did win it, which was amazing. I can kind of still remember just looking up, and I was breathing to my right on the way back. So Seb was to my left. So I kind of just knew I needed to just like hope that I was past him. I could see myself catching up in the first length, second length, hope I'm going past him. And I just see this sea of saltire flags because the majority of the crowd were Scottish, and the Scottish swimmers were on poolside. So I just see this sea of blue. And I just kind of kept my head down and just went for it. So you can't hear much, but you can feel if it's loud. And I knew that if it was loud, it was for me. And it was very loud. So it was cool.
That's incredible, isn't it? And that's where 4 years ago when young Dan's thinking, it'd be really good if it's in the Gold Coast, you're thinking, nah. I'm so glad it's here in Glasgow, in the East End.
I definitely got to feel the the advantage of it being a home games. To swim well, to win, to even just get medals and have everyone cheering for you is like really, really special. I can't even imagine what it would have been like in 2012 for the Olympics, but I know that a lot of swimmers that they just felt that home advantage so much, just within the crowd. So yeah, it was special to do it in Glasgow. It was special that was like my first kind of, level up onto the international stage. I think it was kind of perfect in a way.
Yeah, so cool. And you went on to win numerous Commonwealth medals, but one of the medals I want to talk about is the silver at the Olympics in 2016. But that was as part of a relay as well. So it's really interesting. You've got that individual, like, huge high, but you're also part of a team as well to do something special. Yeah,
I think that I was lucky that I was a very versatile swimmer. So my specialized event was individual medley. So I had to do all four strokes. So I had to be pretty good on a few different disciplines, and for training, I would do different distances. I would do 200, 400. So I was pretty well-rounded in that way. And what that meant was I could have my individual races, but I was probably going to get called up for a couple of relays as well, which are really exciting, especially in Great Britain right now. And for us in 2016, when I'm surrounded by world-class athletes, we've got a really strong team. So I knew going into Rio that it would be amazing to swim an individual race and probably try and make the final. But the relay is where there's a possible medal. So I had 2 races in Rio. Both of them were against Michael Phelps, which I think is a bit unfair.
In your LinkedIn bio, it's something like have a losing record against Michael Phelps. But I think any swimmer of that era had
almost
that.
Everyone does.
Is he a generational talent then? It comes around almost never?
Yeah, I think that won't happen again, as far as he was so dominant. If you look back in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, won 8 gold medals. Now, there was so many races that could have gone a different way and it wouldn't be as perfect as 8 gold medals. But even to win 8 medals individually, there's different relays now. There's like mixed relays, so there's more opportunities to win medals. So people are still winning a lot of medals, but no one will be that dominant across so many different strokes. Like he doesn't have any world records left, so people are individually taking out his titles, but he did all of it at the same time.
Yeah, he's a
So
polymath. Like he could do it. He could do
Yeah.
multiple. That's. I wonder what he'd prefer. Probably what he was, because if say he had the record for the 400 or whatever,
Yeah.
that's legendary cool. But like he is just so good across everything.
Like the records are always going to get beat, but to say that you were that good over so many different disciplines and you won all these gold medals, like that will never get beat.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that now. It will.
But
one
he's
day, maybe,
it's
but
so
like
incredible.
so far away, so far down the road that anyone will win the type of medals that he won in one games.
So when you're standing next to him in 2016, you know how good he is. What are your ambitions going into the pool?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one. Like you should always tell yourself that you're gonna win, but you also kind of you understand who you're racing, and like Phelps's times were 3 seconds faster than mine across the 200, and that's quite a lot. So he was gonna have a horrendously bad day, which he doesn't, and I was gonna have to find something like unbelievable, like 3 seconds. No one, like, you're lucky at that point if you drop 0.2 of a second or half a second over a 200. Like that's the kind of margin.
There's a realism to it, which I think is important, but there's of course ambition combined.
Yeah. So like I think that my mindset wasn't like, right, try and beat Phelps or whoever to win a gold. It was just like execute your race as best you can and see where you end up in the field, and coming down that last, like throughout the race, you can use the people around you to push on. So you are racing them head to head, but you're kind of in your lane with the blinkers on. You don't want that to distract you. So it's not like, right, he's over there, I need to try and I'm looking over and I'm trying to beat him. I'm looking ahead of me and I'm just executing every stroke and putting in the right effort and the right kind of techniques, and then you just kind of see who gets a hand on the wall first. So it wasn't about beating them or racing them. It was just almost racing yourself at that point.
Yeah, and the fact that you get to be in a generation of swimmers that swam against him is also really, really cool, because to be there, you must be absolutely elite anyway.
Yeah, and it's really, it was that final had the world record holder, it had a reigning Olympic champion, it had a Asian record holder, a Brazilian record holder. Like it was a really, really stacked final. So it was really cool that I got to experience that. And I also like racing Phelps. It was he retired in 2013, I think.
Because he came back to do 2016. I remember this.
So when he retired in 2013, if you think back to the story that's kind of when I was just breaking into the scene, and I was like, I'll never get to race him. And then he came back, and then I'm like, oh no, now I've got to race him. So, but it was like,
one hand, gives me the other.
Yeah, it genuinely was like a childhood dream.
You also got to race Lochte as well, which, considering you went to Florida based off this guy's number one, I'd love to learn from him. I'd love to go up against him. To be at like the peak of competition that you can in your sport and be stood alongside those guys, it's validation of the decisions you've made.
100%. I think that was like really cool. Like looking back to 2011 when I went out there and I was like all shy and nervous around him, but then start to learn from him. To then be going head to head with him on multiple occasions, World Championships, Olympics. I think in the relay, we both went third, so he kind of dove in just a little bit ahead of me. So we were genuinely racing for that medal together or against each other. So yeah, I think that was really, and like you just said, it just it showed that going to Florida was definitely worth it for me.
Absolutely. When you prepare for an individual race and then when you prepare for that team race, how does that differ? Because you're doing both in 2016, aren't you? At the very, very top level of the Olympics, the best you can. Yeah,
I think that if you're lucky, you've got few different races in the one games, and you're always used to coming off different highs and being able to switch gears and know what race you've got next. I mean, for me, they were both 200s, so my leg of the relay was 200 freestyle, my individual was 200 medley. So training wise, I didn't have to try and be like really great at sprinting and in distance at the same time. It was kind of the same energy systems, but I think that there was it worked out really well because I believe that the relay was first. So it was like, right, this is your chance. Like you and the boys, like, go out there and give it everything and see what happens. And it obviously went really well and we won a silver medal. So I was like, suddenly this like dream, this fairy tale or like beyond my dreams has come true. I then had the individual. So it was almost like there was a bit less pressure because I was realistic. Probably wasn't going to win a medal, but like make a final enjoy the moment. So like, going from the winning the medal, the next morning swimming the prelims, doing well at night, and then
Probably still running on the adrenaline.
100%. You have to like just bring yourself down, which is very difficult to do because you're also like, you've got loads of caffeine in you and adrenaline and everything. So, but to get the medal first, to then know I've got an individual that I can just say that I raced these amazing athletes and see how I do was like a really nice way to do it. Again, like it worked out well, the timeline for me, because I felt like there wasn't as much pressure in the individual, because in the relay we were expected to win a medal. Whatever color that was going to be down to us, and I think we did the best we could. Individual, I was maybe expected to just make the final, which I did. So yeah, it was really nice. I just went out there and I enjoyed it, and I think there's a really great story because the guy next to me, a Brazilian, one of the only Brazilian medal hopefuls, but he was in a tough event with Ryan and Michael and stuff. So, and the Brazilian fans were incredible, but they were like football fans. And assuming it's like the kind of get ready whistle goes, and it's when they go really quiet. It was so loud, and his name's Thiago Pereira, and they were just chanting Thiago for like 5 minutes before the race, and we're all looking around like,
it's new, it's novel, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, this isn't meant to be happening, but I was just taking it all in. I was like, this is, and at that point, that was the highest participated swimming event of all time. It's now been broken, but like there was a lot of people there, and I was like, this is just like really, really special. So yeah, I think that winning the medal and then going into the individual, where it was just more about just like soaking up the Olympic Games, I think for me.
So cool, and like experiences that you'll talk about and think about for a lifetime.
Absolutely, yeah, it's really cool. And like I was lucky that my mum and my sister were there. I think Lily was like 12 at the time, so she went back after summer holidays, and her schoolmates were like, "Oh, what did you get up to the summer holidays?" "Oh, I watched my brother in the Olympic Games." It's like, that's pretty cool. So to know that they were in the crowd, like it was because they were part of the journey. Like my mum especially, that they were a part of that, the grind early on. So to be able to, watch me live out my dream and do well as well. I always feel so lucky that I've got really great memories at these big competitions, because especially this Olympics, I was watching it, mainly the swimming. The Olympic Games is where your dreams come true, but it's where your dreams get crushed as well, man. Like if you are a medal hopeful and you don't win a medal, or if you are aiming to make the final and you don't, or something, just it's not your day. It's like every 4 years. It's like, that's so.
It's a long cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, really. So I saw the good side of it, and I'm really thankful for that. And it's as you said, like some really great memories.
You mentioned your self-talk before you jumped in the pool at the 2014 Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there that you're very caffeinated and you're also like trying to come down afterwards. What are some of the maybe physical and like preparatory tasks that you do before an Olympic final, for example?
Yeah, so I mean, some people you see like right before they walk out, you're in the ready room or the call room, and you just kind of mingle around, and then you get put into your lanes and your chairs. A lot of people have big headphones on, they're like really getting in the zone. Like I knew that my adrenaline, as soon as I wanted it to go up, it would go up. Like there's no escaping it. It was almost like keeping it down for me was the big thing. So I used to listen to music. I stopped listening to music, and I actually started just kind of just soak up the environment and kind of just the energy in the room and just use that. But it was about trying to almost like dial it down and just be relaxed. I think that not making it too much of a big deal. Like yes, there's high pressure. It's in a, like all these top athletes in this little room together. It's quite a tense environment. So I was almost just trying to just stay relaxed there. And I knew that in the lead up, like you do your warm up about 2 hours before, an hour and a half before, and you kind of just go through the motions. You get dry, you kind of just chat away to your teammates. Like it is pretty relaxed until it doesn't have to be. Because if you're too tense, if you arrive at the pool, say your final's at 8 p.m. and you arrive at 6 p.m. and you're already ready to go, you're going to be absolutely exhausted by 8 o'clock. So it's all about energy conservation and just emotional, just control. Because when that whistle goes, that's when you let your emotion out. That's when you're like, right, let's go. And you let all this energy out, and you kind of see what your body can do there. So beforehand for me, it was like, just be chill, just enjoy it. Just kind of, it's not a big deal, but even though it is.
On a physical level, caffeination, food, what are some of the protocols?
Yeah, so I would just take caffeine maybe about an hour before I was actually meant to race. I would have caffeine, and that would either just be in like a caffeine pill, or I enjoy coffee. So as long as that was going to set my stomach okay, I would have a coffee. I wouldn't really eat anything before I would have like my lunch. I'd maybe have a little snack kind of before I get to the pool. But once I'm at the pool, There's nothing really going in my system as such. For getting my body ready, I always wanted to make sure that I was like primed. So in my warm up before, I would do some fast stuff. I would get my kind of blood going, and I would have about 45 minutes to an hour after my warm up to get everything out again. So there was going to be no fatigue, there was going to be no soreness at all. But I wanted to make sure that I was like fired up, like every muscle fiber had been used. There was also stuff in Rio. We had these really kind of high tech like thermal, massive big jackets because it can get cold. So you need to stay warm, and it's a fine balance between being too hot. You've got your swim cap on. If you get that on too early in the call room and you start overheating, it's really hard to cool down. So managing my heat was a big thing as well. So making sure my muscles were really warm, but my core temperature wasn't too high, if that made sense. So I had like electric trousers on, but just a normal t-shirt on kind of thing. And that worked really well. So you learn all these things as you develop.
There's probably one race you think back and you're like, oh, I was way too hot going into that, or I was too cold, or totally. I was too amped up, I was too caffeinated.
Yeah, you have to make those mistakes, or you at least have to explore different options, and everyone does things differently. There was a massive big thing at one point. People would use bicarbonate soda, and they would like almost like microdose it in the lead. Like it was like 90 minutes before the race. Like every 50 minutes, they would take this little shot of bicarbonate. It was meant to stop the lactic acid buildup. I never did that. It was not something I felt like I needed to do. But everyone has these different, physical things that they think, right, when that whistle goes, how am I going to be the best athlete I can be? And it's all these little things. It's the mentality, but it's also kind of your physical preparation. Like the hard work's done then. So it's just making sure, you're alert, you're ready.
I've not got any limiters. I'm giving myself the best possible. I'm not going to do something that's going to sabotage or tip me over the edge of where I need to be.
Yeah, like there's no more work to be done then, but it's just making sure you're switched on.
I found it interesting because you were in an era where they had the suits for a little bit. Yeah. And they got banned, didn't they?
Yeah. So I was, that's when I was kind of maybe about 16, 17, all these fancy suits came out.
Because the records went tumbling for a little while.
Yeah. And like, I think it's great that technology can progress sport, even from little things. If you look back when they swam 100 years ago, they weren't even wearing goggles and all these things. And now like they shave their, their arm hair and everything. Like people are figuring out ways to get faster, but these suits definitely took that to a much further step pretty quickly. What's really interesting now, I mean, I was dropping time naturally at that age. When you're 15, you'll get like a 3-second PB. When you're 24, you'll get a 0.3 of a second PB. So you're naturally getting big steps forward at that age. So the suits didn't really matter for me. It was great to use them, but I was doing well. I was making those big jumps anyway. But what's really interesting is in 2009 World Championships, I think almost every single world record got broken. And I believe there's maybe like just 5 of them left out of like 30. So like they've all, like since then where we thought we're going to ban these suits because they're way too good, these world records are going to last forever. Almost none of them last anymore. So it's really interesting.
What do you think of those? What do you think are the big factors that are allowing records to get broken?
I think that it starts way back. So like, it's generational. So it's like when I went to university, I suddenly had these amazing facilities. Kids have got that when they're 15 now. I had a really good understanding of nutrition when I was 21. Kids are getting educated on that much younger. So everything's just starting younger. So kids are getting better younger.
You're getting the compounding effect from that.
100%. I think that we were almost at a generation where, as the top elite guys and girls, we were figuring things out. We were proof of concept. This things work. So like these training styles, these training models are working, and now they're implementing that on like the younger generation. So by the time they get to 21. They are way ahead from when we were 21. So I think people are just starting things earlier. There's more education around the types of training to be doing. Like swimming is definitely very advanced. I mean, when I went to Florida, it was very old school. My coach is very old school. A lot of training groups now are not like that. It's like smart training. It's a lot of sports science. And we didn't really have that until the later stages of my career. But I think the younger generation are getting that earlier. And I think that is the reason that the sport is progressing.
Yeah, it's really cool because I think people are always wondering like what is unlocking these jumps in human progress.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much you were spoken to about sleep, for example, but nowadays people do know what a performance enhancer that is. I wonder how much people were speaking about like nutrition until you were 21. And by that stage, you were already seeing a lot of your early progress and you were maybe eking out small amounts thereafter.
Yeah, definitely. I think that stuff like, thinking about how to recover properly, all these new technologies or just approaches to training and to health. I think that now, you can start doing that at a younger age. If you're wanting to be a high performance athlete, and you want to get the best out of yourself, you now know there's so much more out there now to learn from. And I think that there's maybe also, the likes of, I always think there's a really great example within British swimming, and I've never actually spoken about this, but in 2012, Michael Jamieson from Glasgow won a silver medal in a 200 breaststroke and almost broke the world record. And it was an absolutely incredible race when none of the other British team really did well. He was the guy that did well. And then from there was a couple of breaststrokers specifically that started to do like a lot better than people thought. There was Craig Benson, who's from Edinburgh, making Olympic team, that Olympic team at such a young age, like seeing MJ going to do well. And then suddenly you've got Ross Murdoch, and then you've got the Adam Peaties. I genuinely think that, when Adam probably about 13 when MJ won that medal. So he's like, all right, there's good breaststrokers in this country. I want to be. So MJ set the bar, and then, Murdoch raised the bar, and then Peaty just smashed it. I think that it's people to look up to. So people saw Michael Phelps win 8 gold medals and break world records and go, I want to do that. I want to, there's been standout swimmers, always. Mark Spitz won, I think, 7 gold medals like years and years ago. But with this generation where there's so much to look at, there's so much to watch on YouTube and everything. Like I remember watching videos of Phelps like all the time because it was just accessible, and I was just obsessed with how great he was, and I think that gave me motivation. So it's seeing someone else do it and then going, I want to do that as well.
Proof of concept. Yeah. And there's a phrase I use in the podcast quite a lot. It's like stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
And the online world allows us to do that more than ever before. You can watch a Michael Phelps vlog or a training interview, and he tells you everything he's doing. Maybe not everything, but like as much as you can get.
Yeah.
That was never accessible before.
No.
Never.
No.
You could probably pick the brains of Michael Jamieson and be like, how did this work? Because if he's part of the Scotland team at a similar time to you, and you're like, this is what this guy's doing. Okay, well, I should probably be doing some of this stuff too. Yeah. And it's like almost that the whole Roger Bannister 4-minute mile thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's done it. And then look at the number of people that then go on to unlock that amount of potential in themselves thereafter.
Yeah, it's like, if there's a benchmark or a time that maybe hasn't really been touched, if one person gets it, they open the floodgates for everyone to be able to, to do that. It's like Phelps did that. Like he knocked like seconds and seconds and seconds off all these world records. He really progressed it, and then everyone was like, right, that's the standard, and then everyone just kind of followed suit as well. And none of his records stand anymore because he rose that bar to a level that people didn't think was possible. And then as soon as he proved it's possible, everyone's got a reason to do it.
Absolutely. What led to you deciding to leave swimming when you were operating at pretty much the top level?
Yeah, I mean, over those 3 years, 2014, 15, 16, like achieve things I never thought I would ever achieve. And I think that sport is very tough. It's tough at the top. I found the journey to get to that top level almost, I don't want to say easier, but I didn't have to work. I just was naturally working hard and getting better. To stay at the top, I found a lot harder mentally. To stay, but like I've got so much admiration for, the ones that year after year or cycle after cycle, they've gone to 4 Olympics. It's like, how on earth have you done that? It's crazy. I like won, and then I was like, right, what are my goals going to be? And I sat down with my coach. I'd moved back to Stirling at this point, and he was like, right, what are your goals for these next 4 years? And I was like, well, that's arrogant, like just the same again. Like I've done it.
Commonwealth gold again, and if I can get an Olympic silver again, amazing. Yeah.
And like some athletes will look at that and go, well, you could have got a gold, you could have got a world record. I was like, well, that was never the agenda for me. It was just see how good I could be. And like I got to a level that I was super proud of. And I just thought, I've got this opportunity to leave on my own terms, not through performance. Maybe I did another 4 years, and within those 4 years, I wasn't the athlete I used to be. Times weren't as good. That's really tough to see when you see yourself just not hitting that same level. Injury, You know, I could have got injured. A lot of athletes get injured, maybe not in swimming as much, but a lot of contact sports, careers get cut short really quickly out of nowhere. I was lucky. I was like, I can avoid all of that. And if I feel happy with what I've done, which I did, then, you know, this is going to be, it's a small window. You don't need to stretch out any bigger than it is already if you're happy with how that window was for you. And I was very happy. So I just,
being content is a very healthy thing, and it allows you to consider from a place of abundance rather than negativity. I think you said before, like, how hard it must be if you maybe don't medal at an Olympics or a Commie Games, and you know that you've got 4 years to wait before it comes round again. Whereas you've, I don't want to say tick that box, but you've achieved something that is incredible, and then you're thinking, what needs to happen for me to feel this level for 4 years' time again? And if it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah, and I think that there was a level of intensity throughout my entire career. I spoke about it right at the start, like even in training, like I was racing, I was competing, and that was fun. But I think that maybe towards the end of it, I was probably pretty exhausted from it all. And I think that I was maybe struggling to get that, like when I was younger, when I was like hungry to make the senior team or whatever it was, swimming was the first thing I thought about and the last thing I thought about. I didn't think about it all day, but it was the number one thing. And I think one day I just woke up and it was no longer, you know, it wasn't the first thing I thought about. And I was like, well, that's okay. That's not a bad thing. Doesn't mean you don't love swimming anymore, but maybe, you know, this chapter is played its course. And I think that I was just very lucky that I'd achieved way more than I thought. And I thought I can, you know.
And doing it on your terms is important as well.
I think so too. And I think that now, I didn't swim for a while after that, but now I do. And now I've got a really healthy relationship with swimming. Not so much competitively, but like being in the water, going for a swim, setting new challenges, whatever it is, you know, teaching, business, like I'm very close to swimming now. And I think that maybe if I had kept going and tried to squeeze every last drop out of it, there would be no more drops left now. And my swimming career was short, but I've got my whole life ahead of me. So I see it, and I've been wanting to talk about this. It's like almost every single high performance swimmer that I trained with or was around or know, none of them swim. None of them even swim for leisure, for pleasure, whatever it is. Like as soon as they're done, they are done. And I think that I was like that. And now I'm like, I would like to, I'm not saying I'm going to swim every single day. There's loads of other stuff I want to do. But if someone says, do you want to go for a swim? I want to be like, yeah, that sounds nice. Whereas if I say to some people that I'm thinking of in my head, you want to go for a swim? They go, absolutely not.
It's the worst thing they could imagine.
It's the worst. And I think that maybe in my head, I think that, see, if you're a runner, you're probably going to run your entire life. If you're a footballer, you're always going to want to kick a ball. Like hopefully, I think that's the ideal, you know, lifespan of being an athlete, is always having an enjoyment in your sport. And I think a lot of swimmers don't anymore. And I think that because when I left, the way I left, I've now got this appreciation.
A bit more longevity for it away from the actual heat of battle.
Yeah, and I think that it doesn't have to be all or nothing in swimming, and it was all at one point. I was in a competitive swimming world, so it was about being as good as you could be. That was my job. That was my purpose. But now that doesn't mean that when that's over, you can no longer swim again or enjoy swimming. Like swimming doesn't have, like for me, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. Like I've seen what swimming is so important for people in so many different reasons. It's not just about being the fastest swimmer in the world. That's not what swimming is to almost everybody. That's not what swimming is.
It's only the top 1% that
yeah,
that's the
exactly.
case for.
Like swimming is for longevity, for rehab, to learn to swim, for life skills, for enjoyment, for like experiencing new environments. Like that's what swimming actually is about. Like the performance side is just one small sliver of it. So I realized that now, and I'd like to be able to explore those other areas of swimming and not have like almost like trauma from the intensity of the high performance environment.
Don't let me get back in that pool.
Yeah, exactly. So
you said you created some distance after you retired, though. That was important.
Yeah, I felt like, I don't know why I felt, but I just felt like if I'm done, I think maybe I was starting to not love it anymore. And I was like, right, I'm done and I'll step away from it because I don't want this to be a nasty relationship with swimming, which I think was a good thing.
It was a risk.
Yeah, it was a risk because I maybe would just never come back to it, but I have come back to it. But I definitely did take a big step away from it. But also, like, I'd been a swimmer my entire life. So then suddenly I was like, I don't have to be a swimmer anymore. I can be a runner. I can go cycling. I can go to the gym. I can go to the pub, whatever. I can be normal. So there was that excitement of like, okay, swimming doesn't have to revolve. My life's not revolved around swimming anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I've got all this. I've got a new lease of life. Like, what do I want to figure out? So swimming had to take a backseat because I had to focus on doing other things and exploring other things.
It's really cool though. And when you came back to swimming, you went to cold water outdoor swimming?
Yeah, that's kind of what brought me into it.
And had you ever done anything like that?
No, like, we're from Scotland, you know, I grew up on the East Coast, North Berwick. Like, I've been surrounded by the sea, but it was never, you go swimming in the summer, but like in the winter, you don't touch it, right? Back then, like 10 years ago, you don't touch it. Now, it's like the big thing. So, yeah, I got into the cold just because, I mean, like, I've done some intense cold stuff, but if I'm being very honest, like, I like to go in the sea for 3, 4, 5 minutes, come out, get the rush, dry off. Like, that's actually,
which has become a hugely popular thing.
yeah,
as well.
that's the ideal for me. Like, I have pushed the limits. I've done the whole competitive ice swimming. Like, was very intense. But that's just me. I want to explore as many different sides of swimming as possible. But really, the cold, what I love about the cold is just getting a little bit cold, getting dry, putting your dry robe on, having a warm drink. And like, that's a really nice thing to do. Especially, I think that being in Scotland, you have to lean into Scotland. You know, you can't sit there and go, oh, I wish it was sunny. Well, it's not sunny, it's cold. So it's just something you can do in the cold. Oh, you can go swimming and you're going to feel great.
And there's people in other parts of the world that would love to be able to jump in the North Sea or wherever.
100%, because it does give you a buzz. It does give you a kick. So I realized that, you know, that can be quite fun. I got into the cold water. I think it was maybe just before lockdown, I kind of started doing it. And then obviously it was massive during lockdown or afterwards because it was almost the only thing you could do. So yeah, I started, and like, I've always been interested to, you know, when I was an athlete, it was like, how does my body react to these different things, these different training, these different supplements, whatever it is I was putting in or doing to my body, how am I reacting? It's the same with the cold. I was like, let's see what happens here. Like, how do I hold up? Like, can I last 20 minutes or is that unachievable? Like, if I push myself, how am I going to react? Like, learning about myself physiologically is quite exciting to me. I like to just discover, you know, new thresholds or whatever it is.
Yeah, and sometimes I guess that novelty allowed you to go back to swimming. Whereas if it was like, okay, Dan, we're going to go back to racing in the pool again, you'd be like, no, that's the same as before, and I'm not going to perform at the same levels I did before because I'm not now full time focused on it.
And that was the big thing. Like, when I did go for like my first like a normal swim in like a normal pool after I was retired, like, the first thing I thought about was like, you don't feel the way you used to feel anymore, and you just think about how fast you used to be, and then you have to let that go. I'm never gonna feel as good as I used to feel in the pool because I'm not training 20 hours a week anymore. Like, that's the decision I've made. So it was nice to like do the cold water stuff, like the cold water dipping and cold water swimming, and like, there was no way I could try and compare that to the pool swimming because it's a different discipline of swimming. So it just took away that, you know, that like, oh, I don't feel as good as I used to be.
The comparison, because it's not a fair comparison. As you say, you've like, it'd be like somebody being like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm on episode 270 odd.
Yeah.
You're like, it's going to be very different in terms of the conversation and the production quality and everything else as well, because you've just not, it's just, you're not putting your all into it.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. So that was me just starting to, you know, discover different sides of swimming and trying to have a really positive relationship with swimming as a whole. And I think that now I've done loads of different stuff outside of high performance pool swimming. I've done the English Channel, I've done the cold water stuff.
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
Dipping, I've done the teaching. So like, people used to say, oh, you're an Olympic swimmer, and I am. But now it's like, I'm just a swimmer. I want to be an all-round swimmer. I think that that's quite exciting for me. It's like, I've done masters competitions, like, you know, like past age group stuff. I've done high performance. I've done the Olympic. I've done outdoor. I've done like, I want to try and be an all-round swimmer. And just that, and when I first stopped, when I pushed away swimming, like, I felt like I had to try and take it away from my, like, rip out my identity because I don't do that anymore. Well, it's always going to be part of you. And I think that I was like afraid of that, or maybe didn't like that. It's like, I'm more than just a swimmer. Like, yeah, but you can still be a swimmer. Someone like, swimming was my first like pure passion. Some people never find a pure passion, and I had it at 10 years old. I think that's so lucky. So I should, you know, I want to try and continue and embrace that. And like, this is the first thing I fell in love with. I want to be in love with it for the rest of my life. Maybe not as intense or for the same reasons, but always enjoy being around the water.
Talk to me about that first channel swim. The first time round was a team attempt.
Yeah, so last year, I had a friend that trained with the University of Florida. He moved to London, and I guess he just thought, Londoners just like, they all swim the channel. So he's like, hey, should we swim the channel? And I was like, I've never thought about doing that. Like, it's never been on my bucket list, on my agenda.
Well, you were fast, weren't you? You weren't necessarily somebody that swam for hours on end.
Yeah, so
we're talking seconds, ideally.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my events were over in minutes, and I was like, swim the channel. I was like, we could do it as a relay. And he was like, right, how many people do you think we should have? And I was like, 5 would be good. 5 would be good. And so myself, Jack, and then our other friend Harrison, we all trained at University of Florida. Then I brought in 2 of my mates that I trained with at an age group level here in Edinburgh, Ross and Jordan. And we had 5 pretty good swimmers back in our day. We were not, we were all well past that now, but it was just suddenly like, oh, this could be really fun. This could be really cool. Because none of us were swimming at that point anymore. None of us were part of like that team environment, especially that sporting team environment, which I really did miss, I guess, because it was fun. It was such a good time. We also realized that if we're going to do this, we should have a real why we're doing it, and the massive charity focus on these types of things. And that's something we leaned into and did pretty well from. So it just like overnight became something I never thought about doing to something like was so much fun, and I'm very proud that I did.
And you must have got the bug because July time this year you were back.
Yes.
And this time you were like, just me, don't need a relay this time.
Yeah, so it was funny, like after the relay, basically my mate that just swam the solo like that summer as well was like, would you ever think about doing a solo? And I was like, if people ask me to do something or say, would you think about it, I'll do it. But I had never thought about it. But now that you've planted the seed in my head, obviously I'm going to have to do it. So I was like, yeah, I think I would do it. So like, it would be cool. It would be another thing to add to the collection.
And it's just progressing within an area. And I guess for somebody like yourself that's competed at the top level, it makes sense to kind of delve deeper in a particular area. Like I'm a big fan of narrow and deep rather than wide and shallow. So you've explored a particular area. Let's just go the next step on it and just see what I'm capable of.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it was a natural progression. Okay, you've done the relay for charity. Like, there's now a chance where you can do solo and become an English Channel swimmer, which is a very big thing. But as I said, as a pool swimmer, I never thought about doing the channel. But I thought it's quite unique, I guess, to have done the high performance pool swimming to that Olympic level, and then
so
also
different.
have like a channel swimming experience as well. I thought that's really cool, and that's when I started to, this is when I started to really think like, I want to try and be an all-round swimmer. I want to do as many different things in swimming as possible. But the difference between swimming the English Channel with 5 of you, where you do 1 hour at a time, and swimming the entire thing on your own, completely different kettle of fish. So yeah, I knew that the task was going to be a lot bigger.
What are some of the big differences when it comes to preparation for that versus when you were preparing to go really, really fast for 200, 400 meters within a pool?
Yeah, so for me, like, if I go swimming now, I go to the pool, it's all just about feeling good in the water. It's all about being efficient. So, moving further with every stroke with as less energy as possible. And I think that's kind of like the endurance side of things, is just being able to keep going and not working up here, but just working down here for as long as possible. I think that for my pool swimming, it was like, right, you've got 200 meters and you need to get everything out of yourself and empty the tank and be as fast as possible and really think about the small details and like the pacing. And then the endurance side, it's just a bit more of a continuous kind of plod, I guess, or just like rhythm. And I really liked that. I think that was nice. Like, I was gonna have to, I knew that it was gonna test me, the channel. I knew that I was gonna be somewhere mentally I've never been before. Because, I was training 20 hours a week as a pool swimmer, but they were 2 hours at a time with a 6-hour break in the middle. Like, I was never pushed beyond really maybe 3 hours maximum training session. And that's kind of, that's fine. Like, that's not too taxing mentally to do something for 3 hours. But to do something for, double digits, I knew that even if I was physically and mentally as prepared as possible, I was going to get to the 4-hour mark and go, I've never been here before, and like, yeah, there was a couple of like longer sessions I did in the lead up, but again, like 2-3 hours maximum, because, to go to that place, to do something for 8-9 hours, it takes a lot out of you. So you don't want to be doing too much of it. Like before your marathon, you're not running a marathon the week before, or like, you know, you're doing little bits that give you a bit of confidence, thinking, I'll be able to do it when I have to. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm training well, and
We're building the capacity.
exactly, building the capacity. So I knew that when I was going to do the solo, I was going to be in completely uncharted territory.
What are some of the things that you had to rely upon during those hours and hours swimming the channel?
So I was like mentally, I'm pretty strong. I think that I'm quite resilient. I've had to work hard. I've had to push through a lot of pain. Like my pain threshold's quite high. For me, I'm very laser focused on my technique, like all the time, whether I'm going fast or slow, the movements, the mechanics of my stroke, like that's what keeps me focused. Because otherwise, I'll be, you know, mentally, I'll be thinking about dinner or whatever. And
you are hungry at points as well, I guess.
100%. So there's a lot that your mind is trying to focus on. And I'm just like, if I lose my technique, this is going to take a lot longer. I'm going to be less efficient. So I had to just really zone in my technique. So I was like laser focused on almost my technique the entire time, and then trying to blank out any negativity. So whether that's the cold, whether that's the hunger, you know, just me starting to like physically not feeling great, or even just the...
What would you, if you were physically not feeling great, what are you saying to yourself? Are you acknowledging it, or do you just...
Yeah, it got to the point where I couldn't not acknowledge it. It was that bad. It was like I was blanking out at times, just thinking, right, just keep the pace up, just keep the technique. And then it got to the point where it was like I was in a lot of pain. My lower back was spasming, my hamstrings were cramping, my triceps were going, like these muscles that I never thought would in swimming would really get that bad. Like my lats, my shoulders, they were totally fine. But it was these little things that they started off as niggles, and then they became just all encompassing. And it was very tough. But I was just like, beforehand, I didn't actually write it on my hand, but I wanted to, and it was just going to be the word embrace. And it was just like, embrace the environment, embrace the challenge, embrace the pain, embrace the emotions, embrace everything, embrace the ocean as well. Like you're in the middle of the ocean, like embrace that, like that feeling of just, you are this little, you know, you're very minute, you're just out there in the sea. Just embrace all of that. So when it was painful and I was in a bad way, I was like, as much as possible, just lean into this. Like, you knew this is what you signed up for. But I'll be very honest, it was touch and go. And it was really like, for about 6 hours, it was like 5 minutes of me thinking, oh my God, this is not going well. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Can I even get over to France? Is it possible? To then switching, like that switch we spoke about earlier, switching to be like, you got this. Like embrace it. Like you back yourself, self-belief, self-talk, like you're a badass, like you can, so what, you're in pain, just keep going. And it was 5 minutes on and off of that for like 6 hours, which mentally is so
exhausting.
draining.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of self-talk, it was a lot of self-doubt, and I was trying to just push that self-doubt away and just stick to, like, focus on the little things. So I was just thinking about my technique the whole time, because I knew that was like my safe space.
It's funny you bring that up, because so many of the guys that I've spoken to that have done these challenges, I spoke to Damien Brown, who rode solo from New York to Galway.
Yeah.
And he's got the 4 controllables method, and one of them is position and technique. So like, am I in position? Like, did that stroke feel the way that it should do? Did I execute it properly?
Yeah.
And then his self-talk is very much similar to yours. Like, he'll have a mantra or a phrase that he'll go back to. But one of the things he said to me was, in one of the 4 controllables, is effort. And he would ask himself, is my effort honest? Because there'd be times where the technique was fine, but I didn't put in the same amount of, not aggression, but the same amount of intent as I did before.
Yeah.
So technique's great, but did I still go through in the same way that I said I would and committed to? And I always find it fascinating, and you and I both got to know each other through Fergus. Fergus will talk about, like, did my foot land the way that I said I would on this run? Did I spring forward? Did I feel the connection with the dirt? And if you can center in those things, it's funny how much longer you can carry on.
Yeah, if you're just kind of, maybe your technique's okay, but you're kind of just going through it, and it's just you're moving your arms, or you put one leg in front of the other. Like, if you're just doing that technically, and you're thinking about good technique, but there's nothing behind it. There's no intent behind it. Then you do feel like you're just kind of almost like just wasting through the time. Whereas, like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make it count. I'm gonna make every stroke count, every breath as good as I can, every kick count. So yeah, I was definitely thinking about that as well. Like, how much am I applying myself every single stroke? Because if I just start, relaxing a little bit too much.
You probably
or-
know what good looks and feels like as well from so many reps over the years, but I
Yeah.
guess it's different from the power of the 200 or the 400 versus
Yeah.
just this endless over and over.
Swimming is so much about feel. If you do it enough, you get what's called feel for the water. So you know how things should feel. You could swim with your eyes closed and it would just, you would look exactly the same. It's all about feel. So it's like just trying to hold on to that feel for the water and applying the right prep, the right intensity at different times. But for me, it was just, I find it quite therapeutic when I go swimming. Like the motion, the muscle memory, the hands cutting through the water, the breathing, the water around my ears. Like it's a very safe space for me. I like it. I've spent so much time there. So it was almost like just embracing that at times and just chopping away in the water and trying to be as happy as I can doing that, even though I was in a bad way.
What an experience though.
Yeah, it's cool.
How does it rank when you finish that versus when you're maybe on the podium at the games?
I was a lot more emotional after the channel. I had a little moment to myself on the rocks in France, but I think that it was because I was really, really tested. Like I had to go to a place I'd probably never been before mentally, exhaustion-wise. It was a lot physically, maybe more. There was more fatigue and tax at the end of it than during a race or after. On the podium, I always thought, I'm very lucky that I've stood in the podium quite a few times, and I always just just took it all in and looked around and embraced it. I was never one that, overcame with emotion or anything. Like I never shed a tear or even the national anthem. I just thought this was, and I always thought, maybe I'm not feeling enough emotion here, but I just thought this is really cool. This is really cool.
It was an emotion, but a different emotion.
Yeah, it was just like a happiness. It was just like, be proud of yourself, but it was not like I can't control my, my tears or whatever. So I think that was maybe a bit more emotional, or it was a different type of emotion. After the channel, it was like the relief. I can't believe that's just happened. I can't believe I was able to push through. And then in the pool, it was like, I guess still like, oh, I can't believe this has just happened. This is really, really cool. This is a goal of mine that I've achieved. I'm not absolutely exhausted anymore. I'm actually feeling fine on the podium. It's just like, take this moment in.
So cool, but totally different things that you're tapping into there.
Yeah, and it's like, I was speaking to people before swimming the channel, and Olympic swimmer swimming the channel, a lot of people just saying, I'll be all right, that'll be easy. It's completely different. It's like physically, mentally, everything, it's completely different. Yes, we're swimming in the pool for 2 minutes and swimming for 10 hours in the sea, but that's a completely different thing. It's a completely different ask of your body. But it's the same technique, Yeah,
so, it's funny. I spoke to Zach Bitter recently. He's an ultra runner in the US, and he was saying like people be like, "Oh, what's your 5K time?" And he's like, "I don't like.
Yeah.
What? Why are you interested in that?"
Yeah.
And also, he said the pain is so different. So a lot of people who've maybe run a 5K know that short, sharp pain of like the maybe struggling for breath or your legs gasping, and it's over really quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas in endurance for like ultras or the distance that you were swimming the channel, it's a level of pain occurs, and then it's how long can you sit in that pain for forever.
Yeah.
Like until it's done.
That's exactly it. And it's like when I was pool swimming for those like 200-meter races at the Olympic Games, for example, I had to time my emotions and my physical preparation so that within that 200 meters, that's the best performance I've ever done in my entire life. Over years and years and years builds up to this 2-minute race. Whereas in the channel, like it wasn't so much, oh, I need to time this perfectly. I kind of got in and just got settled into it, and you kind of just build through the race. So it's not like you don't have this short window to just excel. You've got a big task ahead of you. So you just got to get into it and just find your groove, and then just from there, then build the intensity.
Speaking about finding your groove, you recently started Swimmer.
Yes.
And I think it just aligns so clearly with all the different experiences and thoughts that you've had. And I think it's great that you're able to now work within swimming, but it not be competitive swimming.
Yeah, I think it's, I love it. I love that I'm involved in the space again. I'm involved in swimming. We've got so many stories that we've just spoken about there and experiences, and it's like I've got some obligation to share that. I feel like I've become well knowledge and experiencing something. I think that I feel very happy that I get to kind of give that back and teach. And you can be a great swimmer, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. You can be a great coach, doesn't mean you had to be a good swimmer. So for me, it's like, how can I articulate the skills and experiences that I've developed by being a well-rounded swimmer, so that someone that isn't trying to be Michael Phelps can understand and can get something out of it. So I've had to figure out how to best pass on my knowledge, and I think swimmer is such a great way of doing that. And for me, it's every day I just work on myself and try and figure out how I can help others, whatever their goals are. And it's cool because I just get to see so many different sides of swimming, like why somebody's signing up for a triathlon or a swimming event or wants to improve. It's for different reasons. Everyone has a different reason for doing things. I get to see that firsthand and I get to help towards that, which is really cool.
Yeah. And what do your goals look like with that in terms of building it as a business and a range of services?
Yeah, I think that for me, I want to build a real brand. When someone says swimmer or sees swimmer, they understand that it's way more than just, we run kind of online courses and there's training and there's programming that go alongside of that. But for me, it's about the community. So we want to build a community and we want to help as many different people as we can and just kind of be well-rounded. I think that's something I feel very passionate about is, when someone thinks of swimmer, it's not like we're a personal trainer or just an education platform. It's like we are somewhere where people can go to that allow them to just achieve whatever they want to achieve. So the brand there being bigger than, also being way bigger than me.
Course. Right
now I'm running a few of the courses that there's going to be experts in different fields and individuals that come in and make the business bigger than just Olympic Dan Wallace running these courses. I think that's a big goal for me, is swimmer being way bigger than I was, and it not being about me but being about the user, being about the community. So a massive, and also a big goal for me, we spoke about the English Channel relay where we raised quite a bit of money for charity. That was so inspiring. That was really, really cool. There's definitely a massive charity aspect that I want to focus on as well. Like there's a lot of our clients and a lot of swimmers that we work with are signing up to charity swims, or their work's doing like a 6-week thing where you got to swim the length of the English Channel at your local pool kind of thing. There's so much of that out there. I would love to help towards that. So if somebody
create a real ripple effect through that, can't you?
100%, because it just gives you such a great why they're doing it. That their why is so strong. They're swimming X distance in the month of June to raise money for that. It's like, well, if I can help you, amplify that message. If I can help you, you do that distance that month, but you don't just do it to raise money, but you actually progress and you get better as you do it. Then that's amazing for me. I think
it ties into a lot of your values and your interests, and that is ultimately what we want from a career in a business. And I think for somebody who's an ex-top elite performer to get to find that again is probably really hard. Yeah, but it's great that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Like as I said, I knew swimming was going to be a small window, and whatever happened after that, I want to be, remembered for those things, or at least for me to be just as proud as I was as an athlete in different stages of my life. And I think
into what you're putting your energy into now.
Yeah, 100%. So that's what I'm focused on now, is just making swimmer an amazing brand and helping as many people as we can.
Amazing, Dan. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed today. Hope you have as well. I'm sure the listeners have. And if they want to continue the conversation with you, where should they head towards?
Swimmer.com for all business stuff, or Dan Wallace 93 on all socials, and we can have a chat there.
Brilliant stuff. That'll be linked in the show notes. Thank you to Dan, and thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.